Should we stop slapping our children?
Yes.
1 billion of the world's children are in danger. Is the world a dangerous place for children?
Yes. And I think 1 billion is an estimation that was made before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a number that it was already existing before the pandemic. And the pandemic and the ongoing humanitarian crisis, conflicts, climate crisis, food insecurity, political instability, widespread, huge displacement of population and children really makes this number, I think, not relevant for the moment, and I think it's more than that.
Okay, is there a region of the world that is more dangerous than the other?
To be very frank, no country is immune and no child is immune because you have many forms of violence. We have to be very clear when we are speaking about violence because it's occur, it could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be emotional, it could be online, it could be in humanitarian settings, it could be done in the circle of trust, domestic violence and intimate partners violence, and you have also the fact that children really also are exposed, are witnessing violence, and it's impacting them. So no country is immune and no child is immune. But you have some countries who have less, number because what is important, they have already violence prevention and also violence protection put in place. Mm-hmm. And this is really important to take into account.
Where does the Caribbean fall in terms of putting into place legislation or advocacy towards protecting our children?
I think regarding Jamaica, that just presented its second voluntary national review regarding the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals this year. I think regarding legislation, you have still the Child Protection and Care Act that is still pending. You have some other legislation who are under, process. You have policies who were already adopted. You have many commission, but my big concern that between the adoption and the effective implementation, that means that people are receiving services, you have many years. Mm-hmm. So the big problem is the lack of really effective implementation of all these commitments and all these reforms. And this is a big challenge.
Should they just stop chatting and put legislation in place and do what they have to do?
I think we need to stop not only all of your governments, but also worldwide. This is why I'm telling worldwide, let's stop talking, let's stop, meeting, and let's act for and with children, and really stop finding excuse that it's a lack of coordination, that it's a lack of resources. We need to see spending on children and on people-centered development and in fighting violence as a strong investment with a high return, because the cost of inaction is really high. And it's not only, human cost, because we know the impact, the long-lasting impact of violence against children that could really, remain into adulthood, and it will impact the generation, the future generation. But at the same time, it's a huge economic cost.
Yes.
So it's almost, around 8% of the global GDP. So if you are investing and doing the things in the good way, and start since the early age, a life cycle approach, targeting the most vulnerable, making sure that this environment is really safe, inclusive, empowering, and so on, you are going really to have a high return investment to make economic sense, return, and in the same time you can invest on other services. So I think we need to switch. Social has not to be seen as a kind of caritative approaches to help the poor. Social is a huge, with a big S, is really include health, education, justice, social protection, and targeting the most vulnerable and based on quality and sustainability. And it has to be embedded in the national budget, not relying only on the donors and it's become a kind of project, that starts, and when the money stop, it stops.
Do we need more recognizable advocates worldwide to talk about, to advocate for children? So in Jamaica, we have a Shelley and Fraser Price and a Usain Bolt. Do we need these kinds of persons to be advocates for what needs to be done?
I think the best advocates are children themselves, to be very frank, and you have just to ask them, and I met some of them. They are the best experts in the world because they know what is working and what is not working. And they are in many countries worldwide, and even in your countries, they are taking initiative. They are providing peer-to-peer support, supporting their community. So just bringing them on board. They are the best advocates really regarding that. And the other thing, I think we need to stop speaking, all the policymakers. We need to invest in children because it's investing in our future. No, we need to invest in children. No, it's the present, and we are the past.
Okay. I'm wishing you luck in trying to get them to take that approach. But I also want to ask you about girls in particular. How are cultural practices in some parts of the world impacting or causing more violence against children? For example, these child marriages in some parts of the world. How do you get governments and how do you get big men to leave children alone?
I think regarding child marriage and regarding also female genital mutilation,
Yes.
regarding sexual exploitation is really rooted in some behavior and practices that are justifiable by those who are perpetrating them by religions or culture. I am coming from an Arabo-Islamic country. I am from Morocco. Mm-hmm. So FGM is not in the Islam. And even the early marriage, it was done at one moment in the Islam, but currently even the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, the big ulema, push, make the marriage at 18 years old. So I think really, and you have more and more policymakers, men, who are doing it. I think not only because I think it's a bad social norm, but because also it has a big cost. You have early pregnancy, mm-hmm. You have a lack of education, you have big problem regarding these girls and their children, and you have more than half of the population that it's out of the system. So it's also about a kind of productivity. It's a human rights imperative, but it makes, again, economic sense. And you cannot build human capital development if you are not investing in girls as well as in... and the other thing, I think it's also how we can change, this macho culture and all this domination of male on women and this discrimination. And I think it's not only a problem of men, to be very frank. Women and men, boys and girls, has to change that, because some girls, or when you are speaking with them, it becomes a kind of normalization. It's like corporal punishment. It's like violent discipline. It's normal because it's a way to... No, you can have positive discipline while respecting your traditions. So I think we have to be very careful to sell and to justify harmful practices, huge violence, by culture. I am not sure that we need to be proud, any policymaker or any religious can be proud of telling that his culture is harmful. Mm-hmm. Something is going wrong. We have in our culture, in each country, really positive social norms. So why we are not surfing on this protective social norm and moving forward?
Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm going to the boys who are in danger too. You have on the continent of Africa, I'm thinking Burkina Faso, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nigeria. These little boys are out of school, not getting an education, being drafted as part of war. Again, the religion, Muslim, and all sorts of reasons for these child soldiers. How does a UNICEF, how does a world engage these hoodlums, these terrorists, really, to leave children alone and allow these little boys to get an education.
Just I want to remind you that I'm not UNICEF, but I am working closely with UNICEF, that it's an implementing agency. No, United Nations as well.
Right.
But I think the responsibility, the first,
Yes.
is the responsibility of states. Just before starting, telling, because I remind you that they are the first responsible, and all the states worldwide, except United States of America, ratified the Convention on Children's Rights. So,
All the states except the US.
yes, all the steps worldwide have ratified the Convention on Children's Rights. So they have the duty to protect them. And in Africa, you have the African Charter on Child Rights and Welfare, and all the African countries have ratified it. So they have a duty, and they have to be accountable. So this is one. Why you have boys, but also girls, why you have boys enrolled in these criminal gangs, in this armed and violent extremist group in many places? Because we come back again to the big issue of lack of opportunities, because of discrimination, because of poverty, because of lack of access to education. And this gang and enrollment is a big market in the world. And what is important, if you are not providing and preventing that, the enrollment will continue. The trafficking, the sale, the smuggling of children, the slavery, child labor will continue.
What is your advice to Jamaica?
Jamaica, I was here since 2 days and a half. I'm still not finishing my visit. I will finish at the end of the week. I met strong, really, to be very frank, strong policymakers, civil society, parliament, UN system, many, and children and young people who are very strong. So you have strong human capital, so you can build on it. My main concern, and if I have something to tell, is please accelerate, stop having many commissions, stop having many things, just do it. You know what to do. You know how to do it. You know the challenges, they know it better than me. So just the question is why we are not activating and really targeting all. Because I just want to let you know, the violence that is increasing currently and that I heard, the crime perpetrated by children in school and so on, it's based on hopelessness. It's based on the fact that they lost the sense of belonging, that they felt that they are forgotten. So we need to really make sure that all these people are on board and treated with dignity and recognizing their rights, not only as poor to support, but also as really strong citizens.
Last question, should we stop slapping our children?
Yes.
Thank
This is important. But as a pediatrician, I can tell you that it has a big impact on mental health and well-being. And we can educate in a positive way by dialogue, without becoming, without making these children becoming king or queen. We can educate on our wonderful values, without violence.